Hari Om Tat Sat. Sitting quietly just for a minute. We will chant Om 3 times. Take the blessings of the Guru, Ganapati, all of whom dwell within the Purusha, and start. Breathe in deeply. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we'll start today. There is actually such a lot to be covered, and anyway, yesterday was Eid ul Adha. It is a very, very special day. I just want to briefly tell you the story of this. There was a prophet in the very old times. He was called Abraham by the Jewish people and Ibrahim by the people of the desert. At that time, Islam was not called Islam. But anyway, this person was there, and he had a wife called Sarah. Sarah and he grew to be old, and she had passed the age of being able to bear children. They had no children. They were both very concerned, because in those days, having a child was very important, as it is now too, because you have to transfer and the spiritual knowledge that you have had to the next generation, so you don't leave it empty. And so then he prayed to God, asking, what will I do? And his wife came to him and said, we have an Egyptian servant, Hajira, called Hagar in the Western language. Hajira, she said, take Hajira as a wife and produce a child to her. She is young enough. Then we'll have a child. So Ibrahim got a child through Hajira. That's a picture you see, the one with the red shawl on top. And she had a child called Ishmael. Now, immediately he was very happy. And so was Sarah also, because they had a child at home. And she also loved the child very much and was very fond of him. Then it happened that within a few months, she herself got strangely pregnant at that age. And then she delivered a child called Isaac. And then she started thinking to herself that now that I have a child and there is Ishmael, what will happen to my son, Isaac? Will he be deprived of half the property that my husband has? Or generally, she was anxious. So she kept telling her husband to send away Hajira and the child into the desert. At first, he said no, he couldn't bear to do something like that. But Later on, um, and sometimes it happens that we behave in certain ways because that is how it's ordained. He sent Hajira and Ishmael into the desert. And at one time, this child fainted from lack of food and water to drink because the jug she was carrying got empty. Miles and miles of desert around. So she was helpless. She put her head on the ground and she called out to God and she said, "Look, you said that you gave me this child, and now the child is dying for lack of water. What am I to do?" And then, as she put her head on the ground helplessly and completely surrendered and cried out to Allah, the near her a stream rose up, a spring from the ground, and she took it in her hands and she ran 7 times up and down to her son, putting it in his mouth. He got up, then she came, the spring was still running, and she said, "Sakat, Sakat, that is enough," she said. But the spring continued, and this child and she were rescued by a nomadic tribe who had a chieftain who had no child. So they took this child home along with the mother and brought up the child. He then became uh, the the chieftain of that tribe. In uh, his descendant after many years was Muhammad the Prophet. On the other side, Isaac, he grew up and his descendants were David and eventually Jesus from that side. So these were two um, children. Now, I'm not going into this aspect of it, but except for what happened yesterday, many years ago. It so happened that Abraham, who was a very pious person, very spiritually oriented, heard a call, a cry from above him, an Akashic voice saying, "Sacrifice your firstborn child to me." So he was shocked, he was upset, which father can do that? But then he was so surrendered as a person, he said, "It's okay, I will do it." So he took Ishmael by hand and he took him to a desert. There is another picture there. And he then got him ready for the sacrifice. And having got him ready for the sacrifice, he told Ishmael, "This is what I'm going to do because God wants you to be sacrificed." And Ishmael said to his father, "Don't worry, if God has expected that of us, we have to do it. I'm not uh, upset." So the father takes the knife. You see the quality of the child also. And this is the samskaras that are planted from our ancestors downwards. So the father takes the knife to cut the child's neck, at which time he is stopped by a force from above. You can call it an angel. And he heard this voice saying, "Don't do that. I was only testing your surrender." And God then sent him a goat. And he said, "You can sacrifice this." So Ibrahim got up and he was relieved, but at the same time, he was in tears and overwhelmed by what God had done for him to test his discipleship, to test his surrender. And that is the day that is being celebrated yesterday when we heard that. And it was very auspicious because we heard the azan in the background also. So this is in memory of a person who was ready to give everything that he thought was I and mine. And if you look a little deeply, what he was sacrificing and what God was asking him to sacrifice was not that body of flesh and blood called the Son. It was his own ego, the complete surrender of his ego, of mineness. This is my son. and what God was trying to establish for him, because he had the caliber to withstand such a great trial. What God was trying to establish for him was that nothing belongs to you. Even the person you call your son is my son. You are also my son. So when I say, give me your son, who are you going to give? Your son is your ego. He didn't say that, but Ibrahim understood this and he went back home. And this is the day of sacrifice for the Islamic community. And I have always felt, as Swami Gurudev, Swami Satyananda used to say, man made, God made man, man made religions. Because we did not have all these technological advances in the old days, whichever person had received the truth in himself spoke in the language of the people of that time, and according to the geopolitical necessities, the people then, for the love of God, created religions. If the love of God does not exist, then religions will all be in danger also, because love is the most important aspect of any religion, because the spiritual aspect is the sacrifice that Purusha did. We'll go to the Purusha itself today. Yesterday, I told you that the Purusha Satyam, that is the truth. Sa is the immutable aspect. Yam is the transcendent, and Ti is the um, changing manifest world. When the divine, who was truth or Satyam, wanted to sacrifice a portion of himself, a tiny portion, for the sake of manifesting the entire universes, he sacrificed a portion of himself, that was Sa and Yam. Sa, as you know, it is sacrificed his immutable state and his transcendent state. So what was left? The changing, manifesting universe. So that is what he gave to the world. And that is the first sacrifice that was done when Ibrahim did the sacrifice, sacrificing his son. He was actually modeling on what the divine did, what Purusha did. And today, when we do a sacrifice unconditionally, we don't look for the fruits of it. And that is what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. You have to do the action, but don't expect the fruits. Don't think you're going to get a pat on your back. God's ways are inscrutable. We never understand how he works, but he will put us to trials and tribulations to bake us properly. Which again reminds me, after many, many years, day before yesterday, it suddenly came to me that when Swami Satyanand was talking, after so many years of going away from Mungir and Rikya, and people thronged there because they were allowed to see him. He was already an Avadut by then. And when we went, he continuously kept talking about bricks, and that was all he talked about. Bricks, you have to bake it in the kiln, and bricks that the tribal people who are ignorant, innocent, they bake it properly. When we have the technology, sometimes we don't bake it properly. And I noticed also now that there is um, I'm looking at houses in the city where the tiles on the roof break very easily. They are not as neatly put in as the people in the rural areas do. And I realized to myself that this is what Swamiji was talking about. He was not just talking about bricks. He was saying, bake yourself. If you are not baked fully, you cannot take the energy of the spiritual realm. Just like the bricks and the tiles cannot take a big weight that is put on them unless they are baked properly. And this was the message he was giving us. And I missed it then. I understand now what it means. And we'll go into the class itself. You have a picture there, which Shivani will put up. This one, that's right. Now, according to the Purusha Suktam, This was the Purusha Suktam, is the essence of the Vedas, in a sense that it tells you about the whole journey and what you are to expect and what you will go through if you take on the spiritual journey. So, as I told you yesterday, there is an upper ocean and a lower ocean. The one that is blue in color below is called the lower ocean, or the Apraketam Salilam. In that are um, bits of free floating thoughts. There is no form there. The place is slow, gray, hampered in movement, easily broken, the thought formations, scanty, hampered by or overcome by hostile powers. This is the quality of the consciousness of the lower ocean. Now, when the divine, the Purusha, wanted to manifest, out of these thought remnants, he has to create thought formations which will become different beings. And Prakriti also steps in now with the gunas, remnants of the past, and everything is born with a balance of Raja, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Certain manifestations have to remain steady and seemingly dull, like a stone, a pebble, a, a tree. Then certain creations have to become Rajasic movement, like the rivers, the wind, people who are moving around wanting to survive. And then Sattva Guna, where people will be more balanced, in harmony and in alignment with the whole of creation. And to these people who want to be in harmony and move higher, the Shuddha Sattva comes to help. Shuddha Sattva is the Purusha, who is not manifest, who is formless, but who is a higher consciousness which creates the world. That being is not disturbed by gunas. They exist inside his energy called Prakriti, or what we call the mother. Now, what happens here? The Purusha makes a sankalpam, resolves that I will be many. I alone am here, I will be many. So, and I'll call this Purusha he sometimes for the sake of communication. It can be a he, it can be a she, it can be an it, whatever your mind feels comfortable with, but I'll call it a he. Then this Purusha sends down what we call as Brihaspati. So, what is Brihaspati? Brahman in the Vedic language means a mantra, a sound vibration. Just a minute. Brahman means a sound vibration. And this sound vibration, the first that comes about, is the power from the Purusha himself. And that power is called, is the first vibration of creation. Then this first vibration of creation, as it comes down, is the power of the soul. But where is the soul coming down to? The soul is coming down to, the soul power is there. Brahman later on in language became Brahmanaspati. It was Brahmanaspati because the Lord of the vibrations. Over a period of time, it was split into two, Brahman and Brihaspati. The Brihat means the great, the Lord of the great expanse, space and time. And Brahman became the Purusha himself. Then, over a period of many, many years, the Brihaspati or Brahmanaspati became Ganapati. Why was it called Ganapati? Because the um, cry of the soul to shatter the inconscient, that cry was like the trumpeting of an elephant, they said. And the word Gana also meant the what do they call it? It comes from the word Gaja. Ga or Go means light, the original luminosity, and out of this luminosity, it is born. That is the first vibration born out of the luminosity. And that is why when we do any puja or any mantra, japa or anything like that, we always start with the mantra Om Shuklam Bharadaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturpujam. That because that is to remind us that we are praying to Ganapati or to that first vibration, which is also called Pranava. We are praying to this first vibration that becomes all the universes, and we are saying, be propitious to me. I'm not fighting with you. The whole universe, help me to make this journey without without creating obstacles for me. And if there are obstacles, help me to handle those obstacles. So this soul that emerges out of the lower ocean, the subconscious in man, and now we'll talk only about men, rises up towards from the Apraketa Salilam, it goes to the Supraketa Salilam, which is the upper ocean. Our entire journey is between this lower ocean and the upper ocean. So the word of creative power is called Brahman. And it is this very same Brahman or very same Purusha that starts as these vibrations for the sake of becoming many. So what the divine manifests is a conscious power of the soul. Then he creates the worlds, all the universes out of the waters of the subconscious Apraketa Salilam. You remember I told you the waters of consciousness stand for the Shakti, the powers of Kundalini, the cosmic Kundalini, not an individual Kundalini in a person. The creative force of the divine, the Icha Shakti of the divine. And if you look at the way Om has been written, you will see it looks like like the picture of a Ganapati. So these were the sort of codes that they gave to tell you that this is how everything started. So Brihaspati gives this vibration of knowledge, and later they called him the Guru of the gods because he came before the gods. And in the Puranas, the name Brahmanaspati was split into Brahman and Brihaspati, and the general and specific names of the Guru were Brahman and Brihaspati. Brihaspati was called the Guru of the gods, and because God and Guru, who gives the mantra to the person to go upwards, to go towards his own source, is just bringing out the mantra which is already in you, the first vibration. So Brihaspati, by force, because at the subconscious level, there was a tremendous force fighting against it. Because you know how something that is grass, that is not formless, if you want to make a road in a mountain that is tamasic steady there. You have to break the mountain to make a road. In the same way, the um, subconscious ocean where thought forms were just floating around and they were very, very rigid and it was very tamasic. It fought against this racing into becoming forms. So, but for forms, the first necessity was a sufficient stable foundation. And this is what, in spite of the resistance of the subconscious, by a tremendous force, that is the force of the soul, it pulls up and brings a physical consciousness uh, and rises above the apraketam salilam, the lower uh, ocean. Now, having risen it, how does Brihaspati do it? By the sound, by his cry. The vibration is the cry of the soul as it awakens to new perceptions and formations. Because as Purusha, there was only one. Now it was on this Brihaspati that the ancient rishis meditated. In other words, they meditated on the pranava or the omkar. And this was the role of the Sapta rishis. And they became illumined on the way. And on the way, they took in, they had a sense of intoxication happening and ecstasy happening, which I will explain to you a little later, how it happens. So then they said, this tongue tastes sweet. That is how they talked about it. And when they meditated on this pranava, what happened was there was an intuitional rising up from their own souls. They were no longer an inconscious matter alone. They were slowly, they became illuminated. And when they were illumined, they were called Vipraha. Vipraha means becoming illumined. Now, then what happened was at that time, the divine sent his other energy, another aspect of his energy called Agni. And what is Agni? We have to remember Agni is the first Satya Sankalpam of the divine. Agni is the first Satya Sankalpam, which comes as fire. It's a fire of aspiration that comes into the human being right from the beginning. Now, Shivan, if you can put up that is the picture of fire, of Agni, mounted on a goat. So you'll see out of the subconscious, what you call the Mooladhara and Swadhisthana have come about. That is a cry of the soul, a physical form has come, but the full energy of raising it has not yet happened. And the Manipur chakra, that is where the Buddhists start their meditation, because they said the lower two are not, are too tamasic. So Raja starts at the Manipur chakra, and you will see that this Agni here is shown with 3 heads. That there is a meaning for that also. I'm not going into those details because it's not relevant here. But it has specifically, generally, it has 2 heads, and that one represents the earth, the Bhuloka, and you will see the dimensions of consciousness on the left, Bhu, Bhuvaha, Swaha, what is written as Swa, then Mahaha, Janaha, Tapaha, Satyam. Beyond that, the upper ocean is there. Beyond that is the Purusha. So we have to move till that upper ocean and wait at the door of Purusha. In that process, we are going through 7 doors, and we stand at the entrance waiting for grace to come and open it towards us. If you remember that in December, there is a festival called Vaikunta Ekadashi, and people will flock to the temples because it is said in the Shastras that on this particular day and date. When the star is in ascendance, the door to Vaikuntha will be opened, and people will go there um, to take prasad in the temples. And people say that if you die on Vaikuntha Ekadasi, you go straight to Vaikuntha, you go beyond the last gate. Now, that has lost its meaning because now it's just a ritual where a lot of people go and stand. But this is the real meaning of Vaikuntha Ekadasi, that when you go with the Ekagrata, who will open the door for you? The 11th one. Who's the 11th? The 11th is the Shakti of the 10. 10 is 1 and 0 in the Indian context. You have only 9 numbers, and all these numbers are mixed and matched to make other numbers 29, 34. It's all 2 and 3 and 4. So 9 is considered the um, special number of Shakti or the mother, because whatever you multiply with 9, it ends up being a stable 9. You can multiply in your leisure. 9 into 2 is 18, 8 and 1, 9, 9 into 3, 27, 7 and 2, 9. So it remains steady. This is the mother who is steady and caring, that is Prakriti. And the Purusha is said to be 1, and the 0 added after that is representative of endless zeros, infinity. So at one time there is a story that um, in the creation, through the subconscious creation, 2 demons came out because Rajas, Tamas, Sattva, all these take forms. And these demons tried to kill the creative energy itself. And the creative energy called out to the divine mother, the Prakriti, the Shakti of the Purusha, to come and help it, save it. And um, uh, the 2 demons were killed. And then the Purusha turned and looked at this woman who was standing with this knife in her hands, who had killed them. And he says, "Who are you?" She says, "I'm the 11th. I am Ekadashi. I am the 11th because I have come out of you to carry on this managing this world of manifestation. You were asleep, and so I came out." These are all um, stories to explain certain facts. So now you had his Satya Sankalpa, and he says, "May I be many." And then out of this um, energy, flames of fire come out, and this flames, this is called Agni because it came, and because it comes first among the demigods. That energy is called, demigods are energies, powers, and that energy was called Agni. What happens is the um, Agni with 2 heads is supposed to represent the heaven and the earth. Earth is the material world. Heaven is the spiritual world that goes beyond the transcendental world, which goes beyond the material life. And when people pray to Agni separately, they say Vashat. Vashat is a word which represents showering knowledge. It means a firmness of a vidya. The vidya now comes to the human beings that they can be. He's a great motivator. He is giving the person the sankalpa of the divine becomes your sankalpa and my sankalpa. And it gives us the feeling that Purusha was there. He created you with a portion of himself, and therefore you can and you will be um, divine at one stage if you go on this pilgrimage. Otherwise, the individual always identifies with the physical body and the physical mind, and we don't recognize the soul power that is within us at a normal level. So Years later, you come across, you are trying out ways. When I say you, I mean me. We are trying out ways to become better and better, to be happier and to be more peaceful. And we never achieve it till the very end, because that is the resolution of the divine to keep us in that state so that we will not be content with something small. And why is that? Because of his immense love for us, Purusha, um, having such a compassion and love for us, thinks that we are worth something much higher himself. He wants you to get the jewel of himself within you and not to be satisfied with consolation prizes. This is how evolution happens in the world. So, to get a firmness, that is what the quick churning of the father and mother, the spiritual yearning, that is the aspiration of the inner fire, and the physical body that comes out of the five elements together churn each other. The heaven and earth is a churn, and out of that comes the fire. You will see this when you see two pieces of wood that are used in churning a fire. If some of you have gone to Munger or Rikya, you will see the priests using friction between two specific wooden sticks to produce fire. That is what this is symbolic of the heaven within you and the earth within you, matter and the spiritual rubbing against each other and creating the aspiration that is called Agni. And Agni gives you Vashat. Vashat means the firmness of the Vidya. And this firmness is given who? To the one who lifts the vessel used to pour the ghee or the oblation into the oven when you do a sacrifice here. We are simply symbolically doing what the Purusha gave us a method of. So when you say this firmness comes to him who um, lifts the vessel used to pour oblation into the fire, we are talking of the oblation being ghee. Ghee is taken out of milk, the ocean of milk which is within us, and then it's made into yogurt. Yogurt is made into butter, butter into ghee, and ghee is poured as an oblation. And this, it is the ghee of our thoughts, the clarity of the thought and mind that is poured into the oblation, saying, Lord, I have come so far. I have made mistakes, but due to your grace of sending the Agni to me, I now have the confidence I can reach the very source of my beginning. Now, when you do this, then the what Agni does, that is your own aspiration. What it does, your own aspiration means God's aspiration in you, the Purushas, the highest consciousness, its aspiration in you as Agni um, gets he that energy, and now all these energies will be symbolized as gods. Actually, they are not symbolized, they are gods. Just like you and I are energies, but we have a form. I'm Dharmakiti. Like that, these higher energies too have forms and they have names. So what the Agni does is it becomes active in us. It fashions our divine bodies, because if you read Patanjali Yoga Sutra, you will find that there is a portion which talks about transformation or parinama. Parinama, the transformation, is making the body and mind until the consciousness itself of the soul is transformed. And with that, the transformation of the mind happens, and the body, the indriyas also are transformed. So, what you will see is that the body and mind are baked into such a state that they are able to bear the powers of immortality. Because if they are not baked well, it may not attain the goal. When you, if a vessel is not baked well and you pour very heavy something into it, either it will leak or it will break. And that is why our bodies and our minds and have to be baked well by the difficulties, the turbulences of life, the crisis that we are going through, the devastations that we encounter. These are not meant to hurt us or to punish us. These are meant to bake us so that those among us who allow the fire to bake us without breaking down physically or breaking down psychologically also. Because if we do not bring up our yamas and niyamas, then we will become violent. If you don't bring up the non-violence within us, violence will be born because we are struggling and fighting against going higher. We are comfortable with what we have. And then when we struggle, we become vulnerable, we break down. That is what greed and lust and power and anger and all this does to us when these emotions, which are also within us, come out when we do not have a true faith in the divine. Because when you know that Purusha loves us much more than we love the Purusha, he is creating all situations so that you don't break down along the way. He makes you tough, just like if you're going to be an Olympic swimmer. The child will not, if you start early in life, say about 5 or 6 or 7, and then you will have a very tough discipline and grueling when you're a child. The child will swim for 6 hours, 8 hours in a day. He doesn't go and play with other children. During the examination time, if you see regular children will sit and study, they don't go for movies the night before. That is uncomfortable. They would like to, but they put it aside. This is called discipline. And the trials and difficulties in life are nothing but a discipline, which, if we take it in the right spirit, knowing this is a discipline that God has given to me to make me into a being like Himself, then you will take it in the best spirit and you will carry on. This is being baked. On the other hand, if you're going to say, oh, so many difficulties are coming to me, this one is responsible, that one is responsible, why am I treated like this? That means you're not accepting the difficulties that is thrown in your path and you will break down. That is nature itself. If you're not baked, the tile will break. So this is what he does. And gods make the Agni first, and to help the Agni, they bring in Vayu. You can see some of these names as it's written here. Vayu is the matter of the life force, because you will see this, and he is on a deer, a gazelle. That is the animal symbol of the Anahat Chakra. It comes after the Manipur, which is the symbol of the ram, and that is why the sacrificing of on Bakrid and the sacrificing of the ram, the ego, the Manipur Chakra, the power that comes into us, and to be used for our own journey and not to be frittered away into small things. Alpatushti, being happy with the lesser part of ourselves. That is what Abraham sacrificed. The powers of his Manipur chakra, because he was a very powerful chieftain, and his son to him was a symbol of his supremacy. And that is what was sacrificed by Abraham, which God stopped. He said, not your body. That's not what you need to sacrifice. It's the ego, your sense of individuality and separateness from the rest of creation. Meaning that if you are a tribal chieftain, it is because I have made you one for a certain purpose, not for your own purpose. And that is why we always say, if you look at the Indian constitution, if you look at the Indian laws, a trustee never owns a property. A trustee is to manage it well. He can't say it's my um, property and I will use it as I wish. You have a tremendous, tremendous responsibility. And if you pass that responsibility, then you have made good use of the Manipur chakra. And you take on that responsibility by sacrificing your ego, where you're going to be sometimes maligned, sometimes people will say harsh things about you, sometimes people will misunderstand you, they will spread rumors. It doesn't matter, because you have taken on the duty, and not for yourself, but for a higher being above you. So on the spiritual line, you become like a trustee, and the difficult things of life are thrown at you. And the divine is trying to see whether you're baked enough to come to par, or you're going to give up and go away, which means you're breaking down. So if you don't break down and you break through, then um, Agni will take you through with the help of Brihaspati, and to give you the more uh, power. Vayu comes in. Vayu is the power of the psychic mind, Anahat Chakra, where your bhakti is triggered. Bhakti is devotion, because you have learned that every time you surmount a crisis, you have become stronger on the inside. Every time you lose something that you thought was precious to you and you thought it, my whole life is over, you come out of it because you say that God knows best. You know, this ordinary term that we use, these are all actually Maha mantras in a sense. I could have died, but he kept me alive. Why did he keep me alive? Because he knows that I am his beloved child, and I'm there to take care of my soul, which is the soul of everybody else. So you become, in a sense, like a trustee, and you sacrifice your personal um, desire in that. Now, Agni is shown as having 4 eyes in some pictures, and it means matter, prana, and manas. Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha. Manas is matter is the first one, the Bhuhu. We are made of the 5 elements of matter. Prana is the next one, Bhuvaha, also called Antariksham. And we need prana to be alive. And then you have the manas, or the capacity or the power of the mind, which in Vedic terms was called Dhyau. And above Dhyau, which you can see, is the word called Swar. And Swar is what you generally call heaven today, the capacity to get siddhis, or uh, powers that you cannot logically explain, like clairvoyance and things like that. And this work is called Brihadyav, meaning the greater Dyav. You're moving now slowly into the world of the Maharloka. Maharloka is the great ocean between the upper ocean and the lower ocean. This is what Hanuman is supposed to have crossed, because he had all these siddhis, all these powers, but he did never once used it for his personal aggrandizement or comfort. He used it only for the work of Sri Rama, who to him was his Ishtadevata. So you have to be a Hanuman to be able to cross. You have to be totally surrendered, not look for the fruits of what you get out of anything that is done, but it is done for the greater good of all creation. Then I will still talk a little more about Agni, because when I talk about Agni, you will understand the other devatas. So then your inner fire now, by given through the antariksham that is made for you, the bhuvaha, the power of prana comes into you, and the prana is vayu. Vayu is the air element, and it fans the fire and makes it rise up. This is the Kundalini of the Tantras that they are talking about, chakra to chakra. It's called the Yoga Agni, not the regular Agni, it's the Yoga Agni. And here they say the Bhrigus established again the fire. Now what happens? This fire is Yoga Agni. It comes, it is like a deer, which is the Vayu element. I'm sorry, Shivani, you'll have to go up and down. The Vayu element, it's like the gazelle, which seems to, if you see a group of gazelles or deers in the forest, you'll see at the slightest noise, they will all jump together and come down and jump again. They're very, very nimble, very fleet footed. And the way they jump, it's as if they have no connection with the earth, that they are jumping in space. That is the character of the psychic element. So this is the psychic energy coming into being. You are taking your first step beyond the material world, and that comes with the Anahata Chakra. Here there are two rishis named Angiras and Bhargava, Bhrigu. Angiras is called the flames of Agni. Ang means the flames of Agni, whereas the Bhrigus or the Bhargavas are the rays of sun. So in an earlier class, I had told you about Bhrigu being the followers of Bhrigu or Bhargavas who would not compromise on the form, and they moved over to Iran, and they are the Parsis of today who believe only in the fire sacrifice. Now, if those among them who know, and they have the samskaras to know, that the fire inside them takes them ahead, and it's not a form that the Angi Rasa group have, both reach. But the Bhargavas established the Agni in the person, in the sadhaka. That is, the fire is there, the psychic fire is there. It has to be established because it is not matter bound, it's not earth bound, the jumping of that gazelle. And not being earth bound, intuition can come and go, come and go. This is what is called the psychic level. And it is the Bhargavas or the who represent the rays of the sun, the solar mandala, Surya mandala. And here, when you say Surya mandala, you're not talking of the physical sun, you're talking of the luminous Purusha himself, who in the Veda is referred to as Surya Narayana. And when the person, when the sadhaka goes higher in his consciousness and he reaches the truth consciousness, when that and it is stabilized in him, then you say the Bhargavas have stabilized the truth consciousness in this person. Now the Agni becomes, the fire in you becomes Agni Vaishwanara, or the universal fire, fire of the Atma. It is no more just a fire of the body and the mind wanting to go higher. It becomes your soul that is strengthened, because with that Agni, the other gods also step in there. Those are parts of yourselves. Everything is inside yourself. You don't have to go anywhere. Then the Agni Vaishwanara, the Agni that is universal, slowly gives you glimpses of the togetherness of all creations. You realize at that time that the soul within you, which is the size of a paramanu or a subatomic particle, is in the other person. It's the same Atma, and the Atmas have no gender, no religion. They are just consciousness, and it's a form of the consciousness of the divine. So in the Veda, you have 4 Mahavakyas. One of them is Tattvamasi Shvetaketu, the father telling the son that, have you learned that from which, when the boy comes back from school, when have you learned that by which everything is known? And the boy says, no, nobody ever taught me that. And the father asks him, gives him an experiment. One of them is to bring a seed, and he cuts the seed, the banyan seed, and he says, do you see a banyan tree inside? And the boy says, no. But he says, you see something? He says, yes. He says, now this seed carries within it the potential to become a banyan tree. It's in the same way that you have the potential in you, if you see your Atma, your soul, to become the divine within yourself. So Tattvamasi means you are that. And that is what the 4 Vedas will say with different Mahavakyas. These are called the great statements that one meditates upon as one goes deeper and deeper and beyond the emotions and the sentiments and the intellectual thinkings into um, intelligence that is inherent within every being. And this fire is called the essence of all treasures, the Vaishvanara Agni, and the word for it is Vasu. Whatever is embedded in Agni, the original vibration is embedded in that Agni, which creates forms. And because they are called the Vasus within you, the mantra of Purusha is Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. That is, you who are the potential divine in every creation. I bow to you. That this soul, when you meet your soul, the soul bows down to the supreme soul of which I am a part, you are a part. The dog that is barking is a part, everything is in everything. And I respect and bow down to the divine in everything. So when you reach that point and you see it, your non-violence, paramo dharmaha, ahimsa, happens spontaneously. You don't tell yourself, now I'm going to hold my peace, I'm not going to do this. That is the practice you do for your body and mind. But when you reach this point and you see everything as the divine and as yourself, you will not hurt another creature because you realize you're hurting yourself. This is the state of consciousness that you reach by the help of Brihaspati. Now that Brihaspati, which was the vibration, can take a form of your guru, another being, because when you're Rajasic, you attract Rajasic vibrations. When you're Tamasic, you attract Tamasic vibrations. A person who is all the time negative will find the whole world looking negative. Negative people will come with her. That person will have more accidents. That person will have more troubles because you are stuck on the troubles. Baking means you are going beyond the troubles. You're trying to look at it and say, how can I use this productively? And you'll see many, many children today in the newspapers, if you see in rural areas, how there are children who are not able to go to school because it is all lockdowns in the COVID time. They are in rural areas, they don't have connectivity. So there are children who are 5 and 6 and 7 on to 12, 13, 14 who will walk 5 miles to sit on top of a tree so their phone gets the network connection so that they can follow 1 hour of online teaching. Now, this is going beyond your difficulties. There are many who will sit and say, oh, we don't have connectivity. So what we will not study, we cannot study. The government is not doing its best. So when you go around blaming the whole world for an opportunity you have got to bring out your potential, then you meet the similar type of people. This is a tamasic approach. Rajasic approach is when you try to do something like these children, and sattvic approach is when the child comes up and realizes that he has reached a point of becoming a CEO in a particular big company because he has the knowledge, and he will say, it is because of my grit that my parents gave me, which made me do that 5 mile walking at that age when I could have been playing like other children, that it has brought me here. And this is my soul power that God has nourished and helped me along the way with greater prana. So this is the Agni Vaishvanara. And when you come to that point, what happens is the person becomes like a bird in the sense of you're able to fly up. It's easier now a little bit with all these helpers, one pulling you up and one pushing you up. And in the consequence, you become luminous. Then they say that this Vaishvanara Agni comes and establishes that luminosity in his daughter, which is called dawn of spiritual awakening or Ushas. That is also within you. The dawn, this is the dawn of your spiritual awakening. And the Vedas say he asks her to manifest in the seeker. So he invokes that power within you, Agni Vaishvanara, with the essence of truth, leads you by the truth and through till the very end and beyond also. So that is why Agni is given so much importance, because this is eventually the potential is the spiritual willpower to climb. Now, when you climb and reach the top, what happens? You meet the god called Soma. Soma, if you look around somewhere, you'll find it here. You can look at it later if you take a picture of it. Now, this is Soma, and this is the, again, it's the Gizel, the higher part of the Anahat chakra, where you get um, the uh, Amrit, a taste of nectar. A taste of nectar. So one goes into a tremendous sense of ecstasy. Now, most people think ecstasy is um, great happiness. It is not great happiness. It's a different sort of happiness. Sometimes people will give meditations and they'll say, now taste the bliss. And you don't know what bliss is, because Soma is also called Vanaspati. Vana means two things. One is it is the plant growth, and the other thing means delight. So when you reach that point and you're so grateful and you find that the divine himself has come and given himself to you, then you make the highest um, worship of Atma Nivedanam. You offer your soul to God, to the Purusha, and you say, you brought me up so far. Now I realize that I did not belong to my body. This is what the soul is saying. I belonged to you. And whatever I'm capable of, all these fruits I am offering to you, from whom I've taken it, in the same way that you offered yourself to me. Now, when you do that, what happens is you are surrendering all the fruits that you've got, all the fruits that you've got by coming to this point. And that is what the Guru does for you. The Brihaspati inside, the Guru will surrender all of himself until you reach the final goal, birth after birth, birth after birth. And that is why I said the Guru is a very, very important, powerful consciousness, which the external Guru opens out within you, awakens your soul power, and carries you like a mother till the very end. So, a Guru is not just an ordinary person who teaches, however bright they are intellectually. Now, this Soma is called a sacrifice. It comes by, there is a story of Garuda. Garuda is a bird that carries the divine Purusha on its back. And this bird, the story is that this bird called Garuda, it comes from two words, Gamana and Ruda. Gamana means movement and Ruda means fast. This is a psychic energy, the Agni within you. And so Garuda is supposed to be very luminous. There is a story, and this is also symbolic, I'm not going into it now, that his mother, who was called Kadru, had thousands of children. They were the serpents of the world, and that's a stepmother, his father's other wife. Father had 12 wives, and Vinata was his other wife. Vinata means being humble, a woman who can bow down. Agni, Kadru means Ka is water, and it means moving fast. It represents the psychic energies that move fast, and that is why they are shown as serpents. Your Kundalini is a serpent also, but when that Kundalini becomes Garuda, Vinata's son, Vinata means one who surrenders completely, that energy within you becomes the Vedic wisdom. Vedic wisdom is the Vedas are the breath of the divine, they say. So what they are talking of is the Mahaprana, which Jesus refers to when he says, man does not live by bread alone, but out of the word that comes out of the God's mouth. What does he mean? The vibrations of the mantra that you are aligning with the power that the japa gives you. It is that keeps you alive as Mahaprana and not the physical bread that you eat. That is what he means. Go towards this. That's what he said. So this chariot of Garuda, when he is a seater, is drawn by Mahaprana. But the vibrational energy of Om is inside him, Pranava, and he is called the Soma Sama, his soul. His eyes are called the Sama Gayatri, and the Samaveda Samaveda talks at length about Udgita. Udgita is a way of chanting the pranava itself, the japa that is used. And when one does that, Garuda, who is called the, in Tamil they call it the Periya Tiruvadi. Periya Tiruvadi means the big footstep as against a greater footstep as against the Siriya Tiruvadi, or the smaller footstep that is Hanuman, Anjaneya, who helps you cross over Maharlok. And this Garuda helps you cross into Vaikuntha because on this Veda is seated the divine. So he's called Suparna, or one with golden wings. So when you have the capacity to offer your soul itself to the Lord, and you give the Lord all the fruits of everything that you have earned, and then at that time, you, the body and mind, become a true beggar because you have given everything you had, which didn't belong to us anyway. So this is what we mean when we do a puja or a havan, and then at the end we say Krishnarpanam Astu, means I am offering everything that I have to Krishna. 7:40. Okay, we have out gone beyond the time given today. I'll continue the rest tomorrow, but just think about this. This is your journey, the Purusha Suktam, and it is giving you the clues to start from the lower ocean of inconscience with the help of the soul power called Brihaspati. The God's Satya Sankalpa becoming your aspiration called Agni. And as you go along, you get the true mental power, which is called Indra, and you get in touch with the Maruts. Maruts is the violent pranic powers. We'll talk about this tomorrow also. And Rudra comes in, who is seen as a very fierce divinity, meaning that which gives you the tribulations and pushes you onwards to give your very best and not to break down. So that's why it's called Rudra. And eventually you reach the end of the journey. You go through Ananda, the bliss that you have, that is through the Jana Loka, Tapa Loka, where you have the spirits of the rishis, and the Satya Loka, where the creative force within you sits. That is the end of the material world. And then you are waiting at the door to see the Paramatma or Purusha. So we'll leave it here, and tomorrow I'll talk to you a little more about the other gods that you have not met along the way and the Purusha himself.
Swamiji, sorry to interrupt you, but we have till 8.
We have the...
We have till 8.
Oh, till 8. Oh, that's good. I'm very happy because, you see, that's how God works. You know, you think it's all over, and then he says, no, you've still got time. You've got all of eternity. So now we go to the Maruts. What are the Maruts? The Maruts are the powers of the prana itself. You will find those are the Maruts. And I'm not going into the story of why there are so many of them, but there is a story there. And if you read it, you'll understand that these are children of, what do you call it? Diti. The Kashyapa is the Rishi. Rishi means a seer, and Kashyapa is the word that means, you turn it around, it means Pashyaka. He who can see, Pashyaka means being able to see. He who can see is Kashyapa. And Kashyapa, the great perception, the grand totality of perception that comes as you go higher and higher. That is called Kashyapa, that energy. And when you're breaking your boundaries, you're finding that your barriers and boundaries are no more limited. They are becoming more and more limitless, more and more spiritual, more and more expansive. And this expansiveness is called by the name Bhuvaneshwari, the Shakti of that, because she is the um, name for the form of space. She's called Aditi. Now, Kashyapa, the divine who can see everything limitlessly, has two wives, Aditi and Diti. Aditi means she who swallows and she who feeds. Ad comes from the earth part, and it means the undivided consciousness, which is that of the cosmic level. When you say Aham Brahmasmi, you're saying I'm everything. But when you come down, then you say that I am this, I am that. You even make yourself smaller than you need to be in the body. You say, I belong to the this community, I belong to this language, you belong to the other language. This is division, and division is a lower consciousness, and that is called Diti. Now, Diti has 1,000 children, and they are the psychic energies. This is what a divided consciousness can give you at best. There are some snakes here which are um, helpers of the divine. There are certain psychic energies like Vasuki, which helped in the churning of the ocean. Then there Vasuki also stays on Shiva's neck. So there are certain psychic energies which are very helpful, and there are many more psychic energies that will hurt you along the way. And that is why Patanjali says, do not ever get attracted to the idea of power, because you find siddhis along the way. They don't belong to you. They belong to the total consciousness. They are just being manifest in you. And if you have not handled your uh, greed and your lust for power at the lower levels, for which you say asteyam aparigraha in the yama, that is why the yamas and niyamas are very important, because if you have, don't bother about the screaming at the back, because that is my grandson facing his own Agni. So they have to learn that if you drop things, it will break. So now you are coming back to the subject itself. You have the Vayu, the Prana Shakti, helping you along the way, and this Prana Shakti and Agni together represent the Maruts, because this Diti had one child that she wanted to kill Indra. Now, Indra is the mind, the power of the mind that is enlightened. So the mind leads you higher. The Indra, people ask, why is it Indra makes so many mistakes along the way? Because you read in the Puranas. Now you have to understand very clearly that the Indra of the Vedas is different from the Indra of the Puranas. The Indra of the Vedas was almost on par with Purusha, the highly enlightened mind, which is filled with the Brihaspati or the soul power. Indra is the king of the Indriyas. Indriyas are the sense organs. This is when you have complete control over the sense organs, and you can say no to your sense organ and get it established with a calmness, and not feeling, oh my God, I lost that um, biryani along the way, or a pizza along the way. I have such a wonderful smell. You're not sitting with your sense organs, because you're getting ready to go to the ashram of your guru. You don't stray along the way. So you have Indriya Nigraha, you learn how to um, control yourself, your sense organs, and you get a more um, refined mind. And that refined mind becomes self-realized, and it realizes at one point in your journey that everything else you take and you enjoy or suffer from are temporary phases. This is what is helping you to bake yourself this refined mind. And so they say Indra, the uh, psychic mind and the mind in its various ways. Indra, Vayu, Indra is the king, Vayu is the prana, Agni is the Sankalpa Shakti within you, the aspiration. All these three workers take you together higher up along the journey, putting you through difficulty. And as you go higher and higher, the baking becomes tougher and tougher. You will see jewels that are put in the fire to raw gold put in, where by the time it comes out as refined gold that can be made into jewelry, it goes in with and the spark of fire is there, but at the end, it is a big blazing fire in which it is turned again and again and again and again. So that is how it is. When you go higher and higher, you come upon the deity called Rudra. Now, what is Rudra? Rudra is the Brihaspati's formation. I don't know if I put Rudra. That's it. The formation that destroys. What does it destroys? It gives you the force. His force battles all evil. It kills the sinner and the enemy. Where is the sinner? The sinner is not somebody outside. Both the angel, the sinner, and God are within us itself. And Rudra is that energy of Shiva or that energy of the destroyer, which is intolerant of defect and stumbling. It's like if any of you have seen the movie long, long ago as a child, I saw it about Leonardo da Vinci. No, Michelangelo. It was about him and how he had painted the entire ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. And at a particular time, he was not satisfied. It was okay. And he wiped out the entire thing and redid it because he saw a man in a bar, in a tavern those days, uh, overturning a huge barrel of wine and letting it flow. And he asked him, "Why are you doing this? It's so expensive." And the man says, "If the wine is bad, throw it out." That gives him the inspiration, and he goes, removes everything and redoes the whole thing. And you must know he was lying on his back with the paint dripping on his eyes because he was painting the Sistine Chapel lying down. So I give you these little snippets just to understand that the difficulties as you go along, it is not everything is hunky dory sort of. You must be ready for that if you want to meet God. So the Rudra was the most terrible among the gods. Any major calamity was attributed to Rudra, and this was the only god that the Vedic rishis were afraid of, whom they and his children of earth on the earth, Rudra's children. This is the greatest force of Agni. His child is Kumara or Skanda. Skanda, Sanat Kumara. These are beings in the higher level. And Skanda, the son of Shiva, is called Rudra in a sense because he is the guru who will put you through great crisis. And I'm not talking necessarily of the external guru. The guru will trigger your own soul to bring out all the karmas that you have gone for along your time of enjoyment and comfort and selfishness that you tread over other people. You might have caused somebody to die of starvation while you were having a 20-course meal somewhere because you could afford it, and you take on the fruits of that action. Because Ishavasya Upanishad will say that everything given to you does not belong to you. You are a trustee for the excess and the abundance that is given to you for the upkeep of yourself in every other creation that is struggling. And if you don't think of that and you're thinking only of my house, my family, my daughter's marriage, my son's education, our business, which will give us Swiss chalet somewhere around, and you are indifferent to people and animals and plants around you, and you use them for yourself, you make them things, though they have an Atma within, we will go through the same way that they have gone through. Many trees we have cut, for example, and many human beings have died because of the COVID. So this is the price we pay for our selfishness and our taking things far too lightly. So here are the Maruts. Maruts are called, these you saw these 29 of them. They are the sons of the divided consciousness. And Indra and Diti, that is Kashypa's son, wife, the other wife, the divided consciousness, she would like to kill Indra because her children are not as powerful as Indra. This is the divided consciousness. It can never be as powerful as the Ekagrata, the one single consciousness. So what does she do? She gets pregnant with a child, and she prays that this child should be able to kill Indra, that is a refined mind. And she has this, her name is Kadru, the mother here, and she also represents the divided consciousness, psyche. And then what Indra does is, Indra goes into her womb, and because he knows that the child that is born of her will kill him, so he goes into her womb and he tries slicing the embryo, which starts crying into 7 parts. And then he says, Marud, Marud, that is, don't cry, because mother will know. And then 7 are sliced again into 7. So there are 49 Maruts that are called the sons of Rudra. They are the vital powers which make light for themselves and by violence. So Agni and Rudra are the leaders of the fierce struggle. And when they go up, Agni and Maruts start off, and the Maruts give you difficulties along the way, many difficulties along the way. And if you are able to get through it, then you find Rudra. And you will see the Olympic prize goes to the person who does best. Doesn't go to everybody who's been exercising. Somebody who's exercised enough to be able to hurt himself and get beyond the hurt also comes up. So Rudra then gives you a grueling time of breaking you. But when he sees that you are steadfast in your devotion, that you're not going to give up, you will be hurt, you will be in pain, but you will not give up on your um, journey, on your spiritual Olympics, so to speak, then he becomes beneficent. And becoming beneficent, then he becomes, he helps you. He's called Ashutosh at that point, and he lends you a hand in raising you up. And then they say he goes abroad, sapariyagat, that is, in the physical, mental, and superconscious areas is called antaryami, the witness of what is happening within you. These 3 strides he has measured out. Your physical body, the pain that you might go through when you're out of alignment, you get cancer, you get COVID, you get breathlessness, you get urinary problems, and then the heaven of the mind is shattered, you're not at peace, you're jealous, you're disturbed, you're helpless, you're vulnerable, you don't know what to do with yourself. And then you are going into Swarga or heaven, the superconscious bliss that you're going through, the psyche, which if you get attached to, will bring you down all the way. So these are the 3 strides that he has measured out as Vamana. So you will see there is this other story of the boy Vamana, which is Vishnu, the Purusha, who, now you'll wonder, why am I talking about Rudra and Vishnu in the same level? Because Rudra or Shiva is Vishnu in another role. Vishnu is Rudra in another role. There is only one Ekam Sat. Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. Vipra is who? The illuminated mind. Calls them by different names. Just like you might, your child at home might call you Papa. You go to the office, your officers will call you Sir. Your wife might call you sweetheart, but it's the same person. So different names for different functions of the supreme consciousness. And Rudra is Vishnu, the Purusha, because you'll realize at one point the same divine is walking hand in hand with you, along with all the other beings you're meeting in the world. You, me, all of us are walking together. So you have this, he supports, Rudra supports you there. And you have the story of Mahabali, who was a very powerful, very rich person who ruled the world, born in the demon world, but he was pious. But Indra, the refined mind, felt that he might overtake him. So they call Purusha. Now, see, Purusha wants you to go beyond the mind into your soul power. So Purusha comes as a tiny little boy, and when Mahabali is doing a Havan, he asks him, the boy, he looks at the boy and is very impressed, and he says, I'm doing a puja today, a Havan, and at the end of the Homa, I will be giving out gifts to people. Ask for anything you want. The boy says, all I want, I have tiny feet, all I want is 3 paces of land. So the man says, I can give you 3 kingdoms. Why do you want only 3 paces? And Vamana says that a man who is not satisfied with 3 paces of land will never be satisfied, even if he gets the 3 worlds. That is the meaning there. And he says, okay, I'll give it to you. He puts 1 foot and it covers the entire world of matter, the earth. Then he takes a second pace and all the other um, worlds, dimensions of consciousness, the whole of the heavenly regions, Jap, Mahar, Jana, Tapa, Satyam, the entire thing is covered. And he says, now where do I put my third pace? And Mahabali, who has surrendered himself, says, put it on my head, Lord. Remove my ego, my sense of separateness, which made me think I am giving you. That was divided, but now I realize that you are within me. I am a part of you. So he is pushed down by Vishnu into a world of great beauty and comfort and luxury. And he says, till the end of your life, you will remain there for a long, long time, enjoying the fruits. Since you know that I am the keeper, I will stay at your gate and be a security guard so that no negativity will come and hurt you. I will keep enemies away from you. So you can see the compassion of Purusha. Once you give in to him, he gives himself to you. He becomes the security guard. He becomes like a policeman walking round and round the fort of Mahabali, the devotee, protecting him. And that's what Purusha eventually does. So this is Rudra in his auspicious, benign aspect. I talked to you about all the others. Indra is the mind. And then all these put together, you come to the gate and we wait. Now, while we are waiting at the gate there, and this is where you say, no matter who you are, what you do, God has to give you the grace to find him at the end, because he has a certain order called rhythm. And just like the milkmaid story I told you right in the beginning, where he says that Krishna says to the milkmaid, what do you mean? You say you got me, you got me, you followed my footsteps, and that is how you got me. I helped you to get me. There are other stories which we'll talk about tomorrow. So this is the upper ocean. We have passed the upper ocean. We are standing at the seventh door and we are waiting for grace. So this is the Purusha Suktam. Tomorrow is one more day. Let's see if we get the grace. It's 8 o'clock, and I'm glad we were able to complete the journey. So bowing down to all the souls within you which are divine, I'll end this. Always remember that none of us is walking alone. The whole universe is walking with us. We don't see it that way. So be a child of Aditi. Only one child, two children, but one effective Garuda who could carry the pot of nectar from the where it was hidden and bring it right down to the um, world of matter and give it to um, the mother of the serpents, the psychic world, that is, to save her, his mother, from slavery. Now, when he gave this nectar to her, she did not give it to the material world didn't get it straight. Indra took it away from him. Indra is a refined mind. When these psychic energies become refined and baked and are able to hold that nectar in them, talk a little more about nectar tomorrow, then they will be given the bliss, the Amrit. And Garuda, when he, that is the son of the undivided mind, undivided consciousness, sorry, brings it down, he does not even taste it. And it is immortality. And Vishnu or the Purusha is very impressed with Garuda that he went through the 7 dimensions and did not taste it because he brought it for a purpose. So he makes him his flag, he puts him on his flag as an ensign, and he goes everywhere with Garuda, who is very, very fast. So when Garuda is talked about, it is that highest energy where he brings the divine to you. You have taken such a long pilgrimage, and now God comes to you. And that is the opening of the door, because we'll talk about that tomorrow. So close your eyes. And today, whatever you may have understood, you might have understood a little. Different people will understand it in different ways. It doesn't matter. The seeds are there, and someday you'll understand it. Let us chant Om. And with this Om, whatever we have gained today, let us offer it to the divine, so that many, many beings will also get the benefit of it. Breathing in. Om. 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 Sri Krishna Arpanamastu. Hari Om Tat Sat. I'm bowing down to all of you who are hearing, those of you who are on this app, Zoom, those of you who might be disembodied anywhere, because everyone contains the divinity, just as I too contain the divinity, and I'm also on my journey to find it within myself. So let us find it together. Hari Om Tat Sat, and thank you for giving me this privilege. Meet tomorrow.